Let's talk supply chain. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Let's Talk Supply Chain. So let's kick things off with a question. Today's guest helps retailers and brands clear out stale inventory and get cash back into their businesses. So what is the average annual payout of a retail seller using her platform? Well, I'm not sure, but when you have excess inventory, any payout is better than nothing, right? So what do you think? Let me know your guesses over on social and keep listening because all will be revealed at the end of the show. And today I'm excited to welcome an award-winning co-founder and CEO to our Woman in Supply Chain series. She's a self-confessed lover of people and possibilities, and that is Melodie, an industry trailblazer. Melodie's journey began as a distributor and independent retailer, and driven by her entrepreneurial spirit and everything she learned, she went on to co-found Max Retail, a platform that empowers brands to free up cash and clear out stale inventory. So today, Melodie and I will be talking all about her career journey, juggling motherhood and entrepreneurship, embracing a we lift while we climb approach to growth, and understanding the intricate dance between supply and demand. And of course, we could not have this series without our sponsor, Food Logistics and Supply and Demand Chain Executives Woman in Supply Chain Award and Forum honors female supply chain leaders and executives whose accomplishments, mentorship, and examples set a foundation for women in all levels of a company's supply chain network. So go check them out. Google Woman in Supply Chain Awards and Forum. So welcome to the show, Melodie.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
I'm so excited to have you here. Now, you've had an incredible journey so far, achieved some amazing things. And I also love to hear from people that have switched sides in the industry as well, because you went from the distributor side to the tech side. And I get so excited when people take everything they've seen, heard, and learned and apply that to actually solving those frontline problems. It's great to see. So let's dive in and start at the beginning. Where and how did you begin your career?
So I began my career as a distributor, which is really just a nice word for a young girl in her 20s who filled a Sprinter van full of designer apparel of the brands I represented. And I drove from South Florida up to Boston, over to Chicago, down to San Antonio, and everywhere in between.
Wow,
And I was
that's a
selling
lot of
these.
driving.
Oh, you're not kidding. I mean, you name a city, I've been there. I just loved it. And it was a great experience for me. And, as a lover of people and possibilities, that's no joke, man. I loved every city, every store, every boutique owner that I visited and sold to. But without fail, they would always point out what didn't sell from the season before and say, Mel, what are you going to do about it? And so at that moment, I had to find a solution to their problem. And the brands didn't want to take back the inventory, which made sense. The retailers purchased the goods, and they didn't want to be stuck holding the hot potato. But at the same time, they needed a solution because if they couldn't move that inventory, they couldn't rightfully buy more from that same brand.
Yep,
And
lots of
so
capital in inventory, right?
you're
Lots of
not
capital
kidding.
sitting there.
Yeah. And that's really been a big pain point that has continued on my journey. But at that moment in time, I began to solve the problem by helping these independent retailers exchange merchandise between one another. So if there was a retailer sitting on inventory in one city and I knew somebody was doing well with that inventory in another city, I would have them shipped to one another. And it was meaningful and it was helping them out. And I'm not the only rep to do this. This is still being done today by other scrappy independent reps. But it was making a big difference for my customers, but it wasn't scalable. And my husband saw this and he said, Mel, this is not a you problem. This is an industry problem. It's a lack of a network that needs to exist and you should create it. But this was before Amazon. People were not buying on Amazon like they are now. Shopify wasn't really a thing yet. And our industry was just not even online. Point of sales were server-based, not cloud-based. So even though the problem was real back in 2009, 10, 11, and so on, the industry wasn't ready for the solution. And so then in 2012, I opened my own retail store. And suddenly now I had a sale rack and no one was helping me. And that's when I realized what you said, which is this wasn't a $2,000 inventory problem. It was $100,000 of financial losses a year.
Right, right.
After 4 years of seeing this problem as a retailer, it drove me nuts. And I said, I've just got to try to solve this.
After 4 years. So you did all that hustling and then you had your own store, and it was still 4 years into that, even though you understood the problem and knew that there was a problem. But like you said, like timing is everything, especially when it comes to technology and platforms and adoption and all that kind of stuff. So timing really is everything.
Yes. And even then, from the time that I said I've got to solve this problem, it was still another 5 years till I actually figured out how to do it, Sarah.
Mm-hmm.
Me and
But
my
that's also
co-founders
the life of
bootstrapped
a
this.
that's also a life of a tech entrepreneur, right? We always see the overnight success, and everybody's like, oh, it just happened. And we're like, no, 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 it did not.
No,
I
we've
love
seen
it.
tremendous growth in the last 3 years. I would say these have been really meaningful, impactful as we figured out what our true value proposition was, how we really could help brands and retailers sell their excess inventory. But it was a
Mm.
long journey to get here and solve
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Well, and kudos to you, right? The entrepreneurship journey is not easy. There's constant pivots and disruptions like supply chain professionals are going through. But there's a lot of resilience in that, right? There's a lot of learning. There's a lot of moving forward, learning how to move forward, learning how to get to your low and get back to that high and keep going. And that's just sort of the life of an entrepreneur. And it's not for everybody. It's not for the faint of heart, that's for sure. Did you always think that you were going to go into distribution and retail and then eventually tech? Like, was this was this the plan?
Yeah. No, you know what? What's interesting is I didn't go to college.
Mhm. Neither did I.
Oh, see, there we go.
Yeah.
We're in good company.
Hmm.
And I remember telling my mom that, right?
Hmm.
And saying, Mom, I decided I'm not going to go to college because I don't know what I want to do. And she said, Mel, I'm not worried about you. You're a leader. You'll figure it out. Nothing
Love
could be more terrifying than that being what your mother's, right? Like you want to talk about pressure, man.
it.
And yet she's always believed in me.
Yeah.
And, I think every step of my journey has just been so natural, right? I ended up
Mhm.
opening a store because I loved the customers that bought the brands that I represented. I loved who they were. So, what the brands stood for and who they attracted, I fell in love with. And I wanted a store and a door that would be open where they could come in. But what
Yeah.
I received from my store was so much more than just the people who loved those clothes. I actually got to meet the community, the nonprofits, the schools, and I was able to understand how an independent retailer is actually the backbone of a community.
Hmm. Oh my goodness. I'm so glad you shared that because I actually just recently put together a video. It hasn't come out on social media yet, but it's talking about investing in, supporting in women-owned businesses. You talk about being a retail store and how they are the backbone of a community and how important those businesses are to that community.
Yeah.
And just as important on our side as women in business, right? You invest, you support in women in business, and that then transitions into them investing in women-owned businesses. And that then transitions into those women in business investing in the community, and everybody wins. And so it's so important that we sort of keep that narrative going. We keep that narrative top of mind because you're right. That is what supports and keeps community going.
It's interesting because anyone who says independent retail is dead, I always say just get in your car
Hmm.
and drive down the main street, not the highway, the main street, and you will go town to town to town, and you will see all the small businesses. And guess what? Big box ain't powering those cities,
Right.
right? And if we think about our own family members, how many of them are a chiropractor, a mechanic, an optometrist, a
Hmm.
nurse practitioner that's going house to house, right? Not even in a hospital. Like even there are medical practitioners
Hmm.
who are running their own businesses, able to impact people in an
Yeah.
incredible way outside of, big pharma. And I just get really excited about all the different people who are out there taking the risk of having their own business and being meaningful in their community because they can, because when someone walks in the door, they can say yes. They
Yeah.
don't have to go and get a signature up higher.
Right. That's so true. We can say yes. We need to empower that yes. I love that. Now, in doing some of my research for the show, I was looking around your LinkedIn profile and I saw an adorable video of your daughter at your store, Bless Boutique, and you talked about how her spending a lot of time there, right? What was your experience as a working mom, finding that balance, and especially as a mother of a daughter? Did you think it was important to be an example of what women can achieve? What do you think about that?
I think my favorite conversation with my daughter was, although she's been in my store with me, since she was 2 weeks old, and she has fond memories in my boutique. We have a trip that we went on cross country in 2021, and I have been ruining family vacations a very long time, Sarah.
Did you say
I
ruining?
stopped ruining. I have to stop in every single retailer in every small town and talk to them.
How long do those trips take? Like, you plan for a week and you end up gone for a month? Is that how it works?
You get back when you get back. You don't book hotels. That's the thing about being a road rep. I know how to book a last minute hotel. It's however far
Right.
I get in a day is how far I'm going to go. So Maris, I have her go with me
Hmm.
into these stores. And one time we left a store and I said, Maris, what did you see? And she must have been 4 years old. She said, Mom, well, you talk to them and they give you funny looks. And I said, okay, and then what happens? She goes, you keep talking
Mm.
and then they talk back
Hmm.
and then they listen. And I just loved that she was seeing that kind of an example of for me, if I don't tell a retailer about Max Retail, I feel like I do them a disservice, Sarah.
Hmm. Yep.
And so that's the thing. I'm not selling anyone when I am out talking to the people who I love and want to serve. But for
Hmm.
my daughter to see that, whether I was serving customers who love the fashion I purchased, or whether I am serving a retailer who has a store with too much inventory, for my daughter to see that you can serve people with love. And even if they give you a funny look initially, you just keep talking.
Keep going. I love that. You just keep going, you just keep talking. But you do it with, a lot
With
of
love.
intention behind it, which is the
Absolutely.
love, the empathy, a listening ear, the compassion. But a lot of times you can resonate with them because you've been there, done that. That's another thing that I talk a lot about when somebody's looking at getting into their career or it's just starting their career. Try everything that you possibly can because you never know
100%.
along the way what's going to actually come back and help you later on in your career. Either resonate with somebody, empathize with somebody because you've been there, done that, you've done it,
I
right?
agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
Experience is the best teacher. The more of it you can get, the better.
So true. So true. So, do you have any advice for parents struggling with that juggle, like trying to manage parenting and entrepreneurship, trying to manage mom guilt, like in supply chain,
Mm.
especially if you're a senior leader, you're traveling a lot. Those travel schedules can be a lot. So there's a lot of, mom guilt, especially if you're missing something that's important. I know I went through that this year. And I missed something important and it actually impacted me way harder than I thought that it was going to be. So do you have any advice for any of that?
Sure. First, I'm right there with you.
Hmm.
We had a really crazy October, and I had to be gone, Monday through Friday for 3 weeks in October. And by the end of those 3 weeks, my daughter was refusing to go to piano, refusing to go to her tutor.
Hmm.
It really does weigh on them
Hmm.
when we are not consistent.
Yeah.
And so it took me about a month to right size things again. And so please know that I might share advice with you now, but I'm still figuring it out
Learning.
myself. I think the best advice that I was given is what your children will remember the most is the moment they woke up,
Hmm.
the moment you got home, and the moment they go to bed.
Hmm.
So as a parent, we only need to nail those 3 times a day. Think
Hmm.
about it. This is 10 minutes, right? 10 minutes, 30 minutes a day.
Hmm.
Nail it. And you can screw up the rest of the year,
Hmm.
but nail 3 times a day because it is the most consistent we can be. And so when I come home, it doesn't matter what happened that day. I walk in and it is a whole new experience. You cannot walk in your home. Oh, it was such a day. No, that's not their problem.
Right.
No, you walk in and you give yourself. The other thing I heard is we can't give our best at work and leave our scraps for our family.
Oh, that's a good one. I've heard that one before.
So when you walk in your door at night, you have got to still have your best for them in some way, shape, or form. I don't even care if it's fake. Just put on a happy face for 10 minutes so
Go
that
get
your
a cup of
children
coffee.
can remember you. I'm sorry. Like, as leaders, we are not always in the mood to lead. Let's be honest. Sarah.
So true. Oh, I am with you there, Melody.
But we don't have a choice. This is something we chose long ago. And on a Monday morning, if you had a shit weekend, you have to still show up and lead. And it's the same when you get home. So the same way you have to show up for your employees and you can't waver. Your children, they only need, like I said, I'm not asking you to be unwavering all the time. Only those 3 times a day, nail it.
So question for you then. You said you traveled a whole bunch in October. How did you nail those 3 things while you were traveling?
I didn't.
Okay. I'm sorry.
I
I have
mean,
to
when I'm
ask
home.
you, right? Because
I
I
didn't.
know some people are going to be listening to this and like, she just said she was traveling. How did she do it?
I can tell you the other, probably I nail this 45 out of 52 weeks. Okay.
Okay. All
And
right.
so, another saying that I live by is what you do every day matters more than what you do every once in a while.
Okay.
And so whether that's my vitamins that I don't feel like taking at night, but I open that cabinet every night and I say, what you do every day matters more than what you do every once in a while. When I don't want to put my face creams on, I rub them as I say, what you do every day matters more than what you do every once in a while. When I wake up in the morning and I go to Orange Theory after putting my kid on the bus stop, I am not in the mood to go, but I still say, what you do every day matters more than what you do every once in a while. So you know what? If there's a couple weeks where I can't nail the 3 times a day, I know that what I do every day matters more than a couple times that I miss it a year as well.
It's so true. And I don't think you're alone, swearing through a workout. Listen, I have a trainer. I am swearing through majority of my workouts and he just ignores me now. So, we're good.
I love it.
So you've said that during your time as a distributor and independent retailer, because I want to get back on sort of the company track, you developed a unique understanding of the intricate dance between supply and demand. And that's kind of a good way to describe it, right? Can you talk to us about that dance between supply and demand, what you learned? What are some of the challenges that really are faced by retailers and distributors? I mean, we've mentioned excess inventory, right? You've mentioned that sale rack, how much money, how much capital is tied up into that. But I'm sure there's a few other challenges you can share.
So I love to take a problem and say, what's the root cause? Excess inventory doesn't come from nowhere. It
No, and
comes
actually,
from problem.
can I interrupt for just 1 second? There is this show called Buy Now on Netflix. I don't know if you've seen it, but if anybody needs to know about excess inventory and how we're actually buying as consumers, because it's not just the excess inventory that's a problem, it's also
Right.
the overconsumption. That
Precisely.
might be something to go check out because it is crazy.
I
Anyways, keep
appreciate you
going.
saying that. No, I really appreciate you saying that because I think overconsumption is a major problem. And I
Mhm.
think we should be more intentional on our purchases.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because we cause this vicious cycle when we overconsume, right? Because
Yeah.
then companies feel like they should overproduce, right? They don't want to miss out on the sale. So we do have to be more thoughtful. That's a whole nother conversation, right, Sarah? I'm with you 100% on it. So, I think what I've learned is when you have excess inventory, whether you're a brand and it's sitting in a warehouse, or whether you're an independent retailer and it's sitting on your sales floor, when you're in a warehouse, you don't have feet walking in every day. At least if you're an independent retailer, you might have some foot traffic, right?
Right.
But even if you're Target, even if you're a big box retailer, you still have about 30% of inventory that goes unsold.
Mm, that's a
Okay, so it doesn't
lot.
matter who you are.
Hmm.
There are never enough feet to walk in to buy all your stock that you're going to match perfectly the
Right.
person and the preference with the product in the exact location,
The
right?
size, the color.
Exactly. However, online, there's another, how many online shoppers? I can't even tell you. I can tell you our reach is 400 million consumers today.
Wow.
That's Max Retail's reach to end consumers online. And so when I had my retail store, it drove me nuts because I knew that the item sitting on my sale rack, someone somewhere out there wanted it and they just couldn't reach into my store and grab it.
Mm-hmm. It's a good way
And
to think
so,
about it.
yes, there's this supply problem, this 30% of inventory going unsold, but there's this massive opportunity if it could just get in front of a bigger audience
Mm-hmm.
to be sold, right? And so that's the whole supply and demand dance. But if we go here and we say, let's just go back to supply for a hot minute. Where did this excess inventory come from and why is there so much of it? Planning and allocating cannot be underestimated. So brands get pressured to overproduce by their manufacturers. Independent retailers, it doesn't tend to be that. There are some overbuyers, but it tends to be it's very hard to analyze your inventory. Believe it or not, point of sales make it really challenging for retailers to predict their at-risk inventory to be overstocked. It's very hard for them to evaluate their sell-throughs in a simple, easy way. And normally, as an independent retailer, you don't realize you have a size run of flip-flops until the weather changes and you're like, oh crap, I got to get rid of those, right? Just because you're moving so fast.
Mm-hmm.
And so, this problem of not understanding your inventory to where you can act more urgently on it is how you end up with having too much after season. And that's a problem that we're working to solve for in 2025 at Max Retail. We are so excited to help retailers better understand what inventory they have and how we can support them. But that's upstream. But downstream, what we're doing today is we're helping this inventory that's listed on Max Retail get sold to end consumers. And we're sending independent retailers and brands orders through all day long that they can ship out inventory that they didn't have the foot traffic or the customer for a product. And we're getting them paid their wholesale cost back, even on past season inventory.
Awesome. That is awesome. I mean, when I was dealing with wholesale and retail, because I had a couple of, side hustles as we do, Melody, as entrepreneurs.
Yep, yep.
I remember the minimum order run always getting me into trouble because I was doing experience boxes on a monthly basis. And so, I had enough inventory, but then four things would be sold out of five of one thing. But then my minimum order was five. So then it went back up to six. And then I only sold three the next month. And so it was so unpredictably hard to
Yeah.
predict
Yep.
what was going to
Yep.
go and what people were going to pick that month. And
Yeah.
whew, it's a lot to try to do. So I'm glad that you have a solution for that.
Yeah.
And so, what you've learned and observed, right? That led you to co-found Max Retail.
Yep.
Why did you decide that you wanted to go from distribution, retail store? Do you still have the retail store?
I sold it in
Okay.
2021 to a wonderful woman who runs it today.
Awesome. Awesome. And so you've gone into the tech side. So talk to us about Max Retail specifically and what you do.
Sure. So it was never an intention of mine to become a CEO of a technology company. The
I
truth
get
is,
that.
there was just no way to solve this problem without technology.
Hmm.
And so I had to keep learning and evolving and surrounding myself with incredible technology leaders
Hmm.
so that we could solve it. So at our team at Max Retail here, we do have retail experts
Hmm.
and we have technology leaders. And the two of us come together and share knowledge of how we can solve this problem. But there's so much nuance that goes into this industry. And especially when you're talking about mid-tier fashion versus contemporary versus designer versus footwear. They're all so different. And you really have to understand the segment of retail that you're working in order to solve their problems appropriately.
Hmm.
And so what we have done is we've created this network of distribution over 20 plus e-commerce partnerships. These are major online retailers, and we are taking the independent retail from small independent retailers and we are virtually aggregating it on our platform. What that means is the same pair of jeans that is listed by 5 different retailers in 5 different states. Our technology knows it's all the same jean. and we group it together so that it can qualify to be sold on more sophisticated e-commerce sites. And the way we allocate this inventory is by price point, by category, by brand even, because we understand that where you place a product, it's going to uphold the integrity of the brand and please the customer that's looking at it, right? So it's not just about getting inventory feeds and pushing them out there. It's about this thoughtful process of merchandising to make sure that we're going to sell this item fast and at the best price for our seller.
So, okay. So if I'm getting this right, so I want this pair of jeans from a certain brand, and I go to a major retailer, and instead of them saying it's sold out because they don't have it in inventory, there's a smaller independent retailer that has it in my size with that brand that they can pull from to say, yes, we have it for you.
Precisely.
Hmm, that's
So
cool. I love
you
that.
might buy something on a website and you have no idea, but it's shipping from a little retailer in Dallas, Texas through Max Retail.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that that's great because at the end of the day, like you said, it kind of pools all of those consumers together. And instead of saying, no, it's sold out. Because I can tell you, I went onto a couple of websites just the other day to look for a particular product. It wasn't necessarily fashion. And two of those websites, one had one product sold out and one had the other product sold out. So, in order for me to buy each of those products, I would have had to go on each site and buy them individually and then pay the delivery costs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I went on to a third site and none of it was sold out. So, I was able to buy everything from them, but because they weren't pulling from each other,
Yep.
I had to go to a third retailer to try to find what I wanted so that I could get everything in one delivery.
I love
Because
it.
to me, also, one
Yep.
delivery is important to me. I don't
Absolutely.
necessarily want to not only spend delivery fees all over the place because I'm not hitting their minimum order and
Mhm.
ordering excessively for things that I don't need. I also don't want that many trucks and packages being shipped and delivered independently.
I'm the same as you. I was shopping the other day and I did the same thing. I always view more.
Mhm.
So on Max Retail, especially, I'll see what's available from the same retailer because if I'm going to buy, I'm not going to buy one thing. I'm going to say, okay, can I cover what I need with
Mhm.
this one stop, one shipment. I'm totally in agreement with you there. And
Yeah.
what's interesting is we actually have a patent on the system and processes of a exchange of inventory between retailers. So what you
Nice.
just described of like, hey, if one retailer sold out, get it from another. Yeah, that's a really cool patent that we filed a couple of years back. And
Ooh, that is smart. That's going to take you many more places. I can totally tell. Now I want to talk to you a little bit about, how fashion, bricks and mortar side of retail is often quite female dominated.
Mhm.
But like tech, supply chain has typically been heavily male dominated. What has your experience been like as a woman, CEO, co-founder, navigating some of these intersectional areas through the years?
It's so interesting because I think I wear rose-tinted lenses and I see the world how I want to see it.
Okay.
I can say, less than 5 times in my whole life have I felt judged
Mm-hmm.
for being this, curious female entrepreneur. And maybe that's just because I only attract certain people my way. Maybe it's because I'm blessed and I don't know what it is, but I really can count very few instances that are negative between like a female versus male role. I have some major like supporters of Max Retail as well as investors who are male and they're just cheering us on, man. They're cheering us on more than they're cheering on the men doing similar things, right? Like just because, I think when you know the authenticity of someone,
Mm-hmm.
it can gender neutralize, right?
Oh, okay.
And if
Never
you
heard
think
that before.
about that, sometimes, if you meet a middle-aged white guy, let's just call it what it is, you might even judge him the wrong way. Oh, that person's just lucky, because they were born blah blah blah. But can we just listen to them? Can we hear what they know? Can we find out what is authentic about them and what we can validate? And so, I would say as a female leader in this tech world, it's so funny. I was at a private equity event this morning where 90% was like men over the age of 50, right? And I was like, what a fun room to be in. I'm going to learn so much from these people. Right. And I just think that it's an outlook. It's an outlook and it causes an attraction. So I would say Try not to create any division between you and other people, and you will end up creating more community that is unexpected. But that said, I do have a female CTO at Max Retail, and she's a total badass.
I love that. I love that. Now, and that's such a different way of looking at it. The perspective, you attract what you think about, what you put out there, the authenticity. And you're right. I mean, we don't want to create more division. We do want to create more inclusivity. And I think it's about each person individually as to who they are, what they bring to the table. And you're right, they could be a major ally, and you might not know it if you just don't have that conversation. Now, one of the things that I mentioned at the beginning of this conversation is that you've said that we lift while we climb is a core value for you. And I love that, right? What role have others played in your success? How do you pay it forward now then to help those coming up behind you?
Absolutely. My success is all the generosity of others. And what they would say is, well, Mel, you do a lot of hard work too. But people are so generous with
Hmm.
their time, with their talent. One of my favorite and most dear people is Kieran McCammon, the co-founder of Poshmark, CTO of Moda Operandi. And I stalked that man for a couple months till he finally took my call. This is this is back in 2018. And I said, hey, I'm a retailer and there's this really big problem and I want to solve it.
Hmm.
Can I keep calling on you? And he let me keep calling on him, and he became an unofficial advisor. Then he became an official advisor. Then he became our fractional CTO, and he stays to this day this close advisor of ours. And the amount of things he's taught me, people he's introduced me to, has shaped this company in a really magnificent way. But I can tell you, even when I get in a pickle of a situation, the network that I've built over the last couple of years for me to be able to reach out and say, hey, listen, I need your help. Do you know anyone at here or there? And people say back, absolutely, Mel, let me make that intro for you. People
Hmm.
are generous. And so I find it very important to give back. And so for me, it might be a founder that reaches out that says, hey, Mel, I wanted to ask you about this, or I'd love to, see what you think about that. And I'm always happy to share information. But what I can tell you, Sarah, is very few people follow through when they're given advice.
Oh, I know. Actually, so I went to a lot back in the day. I went to a lot of, what we called seminars. And I was talking to somebody who put on very successful seminars. And the one thing they said, because I was like, why do you give it all away? Why? And they were like, because only 2% of people will take action. The
Yes,
rest of them are going to pay me to help them do it.
yes. And you know what? I'll tell you, Sarah, I am one of the 2%.
Me too.
And I'm what you tell me, I'm gonna listen and I'm gonna run with it. But that's why people continue to be generous with me
Mhm.
because it will never fall on deaf ears.
But also, you've proven to them that you actually do what you say you're going to do.
Absolutely.
It's one of the
Absolutely.
things that has helped me be successful as well, is that I do the things that I say that I'm going to do. I've been
Yeah.
able to curate trust, credibility, so many different things within the community, within the business community. And I think the same for you as well. And it's
Yeah.
because we do what we say we're going to do. We make introductions when, we're asked, and it's right. And
When it's right. Mhm.
we've done it through the right channels and things like that. And people respect that because I believe it's still only that 2% that follows through.
I mean, and I'll be honest, I'll share advice if people are asking, I will share it. And I'm always waiting to see who's going to be the 2% that
Yeah.
goes through on it, right? And I cheer for them. And I
Hmm.
go the extra mile for the very few that
Hmm.
follow through.
Hmm. So true. It's so true. So now you've won awards. You've been featured in industry media. Your business is rapidly growing. You have so much to be proud of. What do you see as your biggest achievements, and what is it that drives you towards them? Like, what's your passion? Where does it come from?
Oh my goodness. It all goes back to our retailers. There's really not a day that doesn't go by that I don't just scroll and look at the names of the retailers and the amount that we pay out to them because that's what we're here for, right? We're here to improve liquidity. We're here to move inventory and seeing that tangible impact, watching the testimonials come through, right? watching the screenshots from the success team of someone thanking us.
Mhm.
And so I would say, what fuels my passion is the impact and knowing that we have so much more to do. And I'm just excited because we're getting started only in so many ways, and there's more to do. And I would say what I'm most proud of is probably the girls that I've mentored.
Mm.
So I think, when you talk about we lift while we climb, and when you talk about your impact to someone has an impact to someone else, when I look at the girls that have worked for me over the last 15 years and I see where they are now and the amazing jobs that they have in retail, in technology, right? They're doing amazing things and they have the work ethic that I instilled in them. They have the love that I instilled in them. They have the servant spirit that I instilled in them, and they have the grit.
Mm.
And I look at the young girls at Max Retail who are here with me, and it is so much fun to help shape them. And so my greatest accomplishments are my children and the girls that I mentor. Men, there's not a lot of men in the office, all right? That's why I'm not saying men, all right? It's a predominantly female office. There's a couple guys, but really the ones who I spend the most time with, who I'm excited to watch them continue to grow, that's what I'm most proud of.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. I mean, it's all about paying it forward, but then it's also about us talking about our achievements, showing what's possible, and I think that's really important too. So, last question for you, what does the future hold for you?
I mean, a lot more change to our industry, a lot of expansion for Max Retail. I would say new customer segments that we can support of independent retail, more services and products for them to get ahead of their inventory management, global distribution. And for me, I want to start doing a little bit more writing, not work writing. I'm more into poetry and the fun stuff. So I think you have to constantly be balancing your life, right? You can't only think about work, right? I have my young children at home, a 5-year-old son, a 7-year-old daughter. I like to think about, my daughter wants to do cheerleading in a couple of years, but she's an introvert. We have to start
Mm.
working on that now, right? Proper
Right.
preparation prevents poor performance. My son loves baseball, but he needs more help with speech therapy. I have to make sure that, we're working both sides of the coin on him. So I think for myself personally, more artistic, creative things in my spare time, reading more books. Professionally, I mean, until Max Retail is in every country and language that we don't speak, and just continuing to pay attention to my most important creations, which are my children and, of course, my husband, my marriage.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of that. I mean, it's been such a pleasure to talk to you, shine a light on your journey. You're incredibly passionate, ambitious. You're growing a successful business for yourself, for your family, whilst, also setting an example to your daughter, helping young women to follow in your footsteps. I mean, you're a real inspiration. I can't wait to see where you go and where you take Max Retail next. So, for all of you, did you have a guess at today's big question? Well, at the top of the show, I asked you, what is the average annual payout of a retail seller on Max Retail? Well, it's an impressive $26,400, with enterprise sellers making over $250,000. So, those are some impressive numbers. You could get back onto your bottom line for inventory that's just sat gathering dust. Melodie, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your journey with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you, Sarah.